Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. I'm Biola Alabi.
I'm Tundra Abiola.
I'm Veronica Deka. Welcome back. Has 2019 general elections improved or retarded Nigerian democracy, one may ask? Well, this morning we will be focusing on the supplementary elections happening today in the 17 states and the Federal Capital Territory, the already concluded elections, and a general overview of Nigeria's electoral system. Joining us now is Biodun Ajiboye, APC Chieftain, Director of Media and Publicity, National Committee of Bwari Support Group. Good morning, sir. Welcome back to the program.
Good morning. Good morning. Nice to be here. Good morning.
It's good to have you back.
Thank you very much. Feels like home, actually.
Good.
Last time we had you on, it was before the elections. You were fired up. Languages and temperatures were very high. We've had most of the elections. Yes, we have some supplementary elections today in 17 states, but we've had the presidential election come and go. We've had most of the gubernatorial elections come and go. As someone who was leading the National Committee for the Bwari Support Group, how do you believe these elections have fared when it comes to our democracy? Are you encouraged, discouraged, or neutral when it comes to how we've done as a nation? Even if you, if you were to look at this as a Nigerian rather than just a Buhari supporter.
Interesting. And I'll tell you straight away that if you look at elections, from the time we've been having elections, the level of violence gradually reduces as the election progressed. The elections that held around in the 50s were quite, volatile by, measuring by violence. In the 63 election and all of that, equally very violent. And that was when you have in the southwest here, this, that, burning of houses. Even 83, in those states and the Oyo states and a couple of places, were serious violence. 93 was not any violence because, of course, the election was annulled. Of course, the ones we had, ever since, the level of violence were coming down. Until 2015, if you remember very well, that the violence we experienced in Rivers, for instance, were perhaps induced by some disagreement between two chieftains, between a particular set of chieftains. I think the federal government of that time, of President Jonathan, was supporting Wike, who was his minister, as against, that's my perception, may not be the real thing, as against Rotimi Amechi and all of that. And there was Rivers have been quite violent in recent times. Now, talking about 2019 elections, it's been quite fantastic, I must say. It's not a lot of violence. If you look at Lagos, for instance, in a state of 2021 local government, we had just something you can call violence around Okota, which is not even a full local government, a few wards.
When you say because what you're doing is you're saying that you're downplaying the level of violence in this election, or you're saying that you don't believe there was this election was violent, but we did lose lives, and no election should call or have people lose their lives.
I agree totally. I agree totally. But what I'm saying to you is, if you look at where we're coming from, how many lives we've lost in the past, and how many lives we lost in the 2019 election, we can measure. If, for instance, we lost 100 lives in the last 20 years, and we ended up losing like 2, 3, 4 lives in 2019. No, I'm coming. Losing life in any circumstance is wrong and unacceptable.
But the numbers are double digits, and they're in the high double digits.
In the 2019 elections. But, let's look at Lagos, Rivers. I've told you Rivers is motivated and induced by so many other reasons.
Which we'll talk about your party's role in that, but that's later. What we are talking about now is the fact that almost, I mean, up until the last count, we've had almost 100 people lose their lives in this election.
No, please, in what states?
Across the country.
No. You see, Nigerians have a way of playing with statistics. Let's be very careful. I have not said there was no violence. I am saying I do not particularly subscribe to that huge number of people that got killed in the violence. And to convince me, probably, we need to compare statistics here and there. But let's not downplay issues of violence. Let us seek how we can mitigate against violence in future. I think that's more important to us. You know, as a nation, we should do elections without violence. We should do elections
without loss of life.
Without loss of life.
We can all agree on that.
You understand? So that's where we should be. That is the conversation we should put on the table.
So let me ask you this. How is your party, APC, conveying this message of peace and making sure that there's unity, especially in the 17 states that are going back into voting today?
Well, you know, the party is interested in ensuring that enduring democracy, you know, is enthroned.
Yes.
And you can see from the body language of Mr. President that he will not support any acts that tilts towards, you know, violence, electoral malpractice of whatever kind. He said times without number that he's interested in ensuring that democracy takes a very firm root even after he's left power. I mean, that's a message we in the APC carry around to say, look, we're not just here to conduct elections to favor ourselves only. We're here to say democracy is 20 years. I mean, we've had 20 years of uninterrupted democracy. First time in a long time. And we have been active participants in this democracy. And now in the last 4 years, we've been on the saddle, and we're saying we will ensure that going forward, elections are done with minimal malpractices.
It's actually the first time in history, but I want to talk to you about the tribunal yesterday and the blow dealt to APC. Well, I'm sure I don't need to rehash it, but Ademola Adeleke has been declared the duly elected governor of Osun State. So what are the options that APC is pursuing, first of all?
Without being, without being prejudicial about this matter in court and tribunal, the important thing here is that APC has appealed. And you can see that even the chairman of the tribunal had a bit of disagreement with the judgment. And, you know, lawyers have come up with a lot of issues with respect to actions the tribunal took that were actually beyond the limit of their legal scope.
Such as?
Well, I mean, there are some sections in the Electoral that says that tribunals are not actually meant to count, reduce, shuffle votes. You understand? And they did that by subtracting some number from some number to arrive at some number that meant somebody won and somebody lost. You understand?
So these are the technical
those are issues that have come up from this action of yesterday. But, you know, this is democracy. You go to court as a right that you have. You get judgment in court. Judgment is appealed, and life goes on. It doesn't mean anything to us.
So with that,
as APC, we don't want to lose any states, but we will not do anything that will undermine democracy. Trust me, we will not.
So with that in mind, as Nigerians go to the polls today for these supplementary elections, where in some states, INEC declared elections inconclusive. To great, you know, criticism from certain parties using the margin of lead principle. What is your view on this spate of inconclusive elections that we've had now? Do you think that this actually supports democracy?
Definitely. Why would INEC declare an election inconclusive to start with? If it is inconclusive, then they're not the arbiter. They're the ones that should judge, manage the election process. If they say, hey, this is not right, we can't make a pronouncement based on these procedures, it is only reasonable for them to say, let's halt and let us recalculate. Let's order a supplementary election that will give a better opportunity, a clearer view, a clearer management You understand? In some of those places, you know, there were reasons why they had to cancel some of those elections and...
Okay, I call your attention to Bauchi. An arbiter needs to be clear, as you said. Clarity is important, and an arbiter needs to be trusted. In Bauchi, over the Tafawa Balewa...
Always remember that I'm not INEC.
I know you're not INEC, but I'm asking for your opinion.
No, let's carry on.
Yeah, so you're an APC member.
I am an APC.
Buhari support organization.
I
know
APC
who I'm speaking to, sir.
Okay.
Yes. So, regarding Bauchi, INEC declared it inconclusive and then reneged on their own finding and said, oh no, it's not inconclusive after all. It was a form over substance issue. We can proceed. And that gave rise to a court order. The court order has now been rescinded. There's been a lot of inconsistencies regarding...
the part of INEC.
Yes. So how do you think that can be improved? How can we tighten these processes?
Well, you see, we need to be very honest with ourselves. I have come to realize that some of us, Nigerians, we expect a society that is actually faster than what we can give. We most of the time talk about America, that we have all been, but coming back home, we've all refused to live the way Americans live that have developed their society. If you expect INEC to act like some individuals from Acapulco or from some place outside Nigeria, then you are losing sight of the fact that they are Nigerians with our kind of idiosyncrasy, our kind of mannerisms, our kind of attitude. So they can only manage and exist within their environmental circumstances. So if you say a typical Nigerian is lazy, for instance, I'm not saying Nigerians are lazy. If you say a typical Nigerian is, how do I put it, lame duck, then you want to say INEC should not be, but it's a characteristic of Nigerians. So let us be careful. Let us be careful the way we allot, the way we apportion blames. I have not said INEC is perfect. Of course, there's no Nigerian institution that is perfect. Be it media, be it security, be it police, Nigerian army, any Nigerian institution. Now, why are we not perfect as a people? That's a different matter altogether that we will not discuss here today, I guess. So, but coming down to INEC, I think INEC needs to be a bit more careful in the way they make pronouncements and in the way they rescind their own pronouncements. I think it's just about a bit of care. There's a need for a bit of care. If you make a pronouncement that you think has fallen short of propriety, has fallen short of, you know, what should be, there must be a way to manage such, you know. Again, we must be able to say that so far, INEC has a pass mark in what they have done. We must be able to say that. And why? Every observer, most of the, I've not seen any of the observers that have actually come out to say that the elections were terrible.
There's been a lot of criticism regarding INEC's conduct, regarding INEC's, and today, this has still been one of the lowest voter turnout elections in history, which a lot of this has been squarely placed at INEC's footstep.
That is wrong placement.
Okay, please.
Why do you place voters turnout on INEC? Nigerians take, 1993 election had the highest voters turnout for reasons best known to all of us. Perhaps the campaigns were better. Perhaps INEC, I don't know whether it was FEDECO.
It was NEC.
Yes.
FEDECO
was Ovie Whiskey of 1979.
Yeah, NEC was there, not INEC.
So maybe they had better campaigns. You see, because voting appears voluntary in Nigeria. If you decide not to vote, nobody takes you. Nobody holds you responsible for not voting.
That's the beauty of democracy.
Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? So, if people refuse to come out, it's a general responsibility of the political party and INEC to do a good campaign to motivate people from coming out.
I think the number one reason why people wasn't more so the voter turnout, because a lot of people, when you look at the numbers, we've seen that the total number of registered voters were high. So I feel that people did believe in the process as a citizen, exercising my right is really important. I feel that somehow between people encouraging people to register to vote, which the message was really strong across the board in the nation, and actually ensuring as citizens security and safety in participating and exercising your right to vote, I feel that's where the message was lost.
And the postponement.
Yes, and the postponement. I think that that's where fear came in, because at the end of the day, as a citizen, and I'm speaking for myself and other people that I know, I did not vote out of fear. I did not vote. So as a citizen, I'm saying that there was, and we can see, because after the elections, we saw after the first postponement and then the second one, we could see that there was violence, and a lot of violence, in that instance. So I feel that somewhere in between there, the message was obviously lost. And like you said, rightfully, maybe INEC is not to be blamed wholly, but both political parties, all political parties, and INEC are to be held responsibly. But at the end of the day, what are the actions that should be taken by each party, your party for instance, to ensure and encourage people to exercise their citizen right and vote, and that there will be safety and security? Because at the end of the day, that's the #1 reason why people don't go out to vote. It is that security in this country. We all know that for a fact.
Well, elections in Nigeria are quite volatile, and that's the truth. But we keep managing until we get there. We keep looking at the issues until we arrive at a convenient and comfortable position with respect to, one, violence, voters turnout, and all of that. But for me, I think that the apathy we experienced in the last election was probably due to the fact that people felt, like you said, people felt too complacent about if I vote, will they count my votes? If I vote, what comes out of it? Nigerians are
okay, sir, I just want to pick up on what you said. You said people, it's about if I vote, will my vote count?
There's that feeling.
At that point, is that not also a part of INEC's responsibility to be independent? We've all talked about what INEC did and didn't do. So when you're saying that INEC is not responsible for low voter turnout, you've just said that part of it is people are wondering, is my vote going to count? That means that they don't have faith or trust the umpire that is in charge.
What I mean by my vote's going to count basically is that it's an age-long perception. It may not have actually be Yakubu's INEC. It's an age-long perception. There was a time in this country that people would vote and they will count a different, they will take the ballot box, remove the ballot box at the polling center and stuff another ballot box from somewhere else and count that. All of those have happened by way of our experience. And that's why I made that statement. It is not in relation to 2019 election or or any election whatsoever. It is an age-long perception of people.
Why do people have this perception?
I've just told you there were times in this country where people will be voting somewhere else before we introduced this biometrics and voter card reader.
Yes.
You understand? There were times in this country that different votes from what people are actually voting will be counted.
Yes.
There were times in this country where the vote the vote that actually took place in a polling center is not what is announced.
So you're saying INEC has made it more transparent in the process?
In fact, Yakubu has done well, if I must. From Jega revolutionized the voting procedure, electoral procedure. It did a lot, Yakubu made it simpler. And I think between Jega and Yakubu, there's a lot that has happened to our election process and management. Do always remember where we're coming from. It's important. Because that's the only basis we can say we've done well, we're not doing well, we're getting worse, or we're getting better. So we must be able to make that comparison.
I want us to now get some insights from you about the internal workings, disciplinary mechanisms in the APC. You referred to the dispute between Minister Rotimi Amechi and Governor Wike, and when
the dispute in 2015,
which which we can see playing out now.
Is it?
It is currently.
I didn't say that, but if you tell me, yes, okay.
I am saying it,
okay,
and I can say that categorically.
Okay,
it's not called rivers of blood for nothing. Unfortunately, people have died. There's been a huge dispute between the Nigerian army and the governor, between the Nigerian army and different political parties, different citizens, different civil service organizations in River State. What ought to have been done to curtail this? I'm thinking of the peace accord with Bishop Kuka and the former head of state, Abdul Salam. Should they have intervened at a state level as opposed to just at a presidential level? Should the APC have called to order their party, which is the honorable minister? Should the president, which has been described on this show by one of our guests, Mr. Onoja, as a father figure to the nation, have called to order both a member of his cabinet and a governor, Wike? What ought to have been done to avoid the melee that has happened in River State?
I must be very honest with you. Politics is local. Politics is local. You're as good a politician, as popular as you can be within your locality. It's not a matter for Abuja or for...
When Nigerian lives are at risk?
No, I am laying a basis for a discussion.
Pardon me.
Now, I'm saying Rotimi Amechi is a factor in River State, politically. If you trace the background of this whole idea, of this whole issue, Wike was supposed to be Rotimi Amechi's chief of staff, something like that. Between Rotimi Amechi and the former presidents, there was an expression of, okay, Wike was a minister under Jonathan, while Amechi was governor. Amechi fell out with PDP and joined APC midstream shortly before 2015 elections. Right. Wike was obviously preferred by the power that be at that time, by Jonathan, government. Eventually, Wike became governor. And between Wike and Rotimi Amechi, ever since, there has not been any cordial relationship. For whatever it is worth, the APC candidate was disqualified from contesting in River State. I want to believe Rotimi Amechi supported another candidate. As I said earlier, Rotimi Amechi is a factor in River State, except we want to deceive ourselves. He threw his support for another candidate, and the candidate seems to be having, an edge. I didn't say upper hand, an edge. And I think this came a bit shocking to Wike. Maybe he didn't see it coming. You understand? So there's friction. I think what I can observe is that Wike sees his territory being threatened. And Rotimi Amechi is intending to put a point across that, hey, this River State, we own it together. I probably even know this River State more than you do. So muscles are being flexed seriously between the two of them. Whether we like it or not, there must be election in River State. Whether we like it or not, a governor must emerge in River State. But we owe ourselves a responsibility of managing the situation with minimal violence and loss of lives. I agree with that. Genuinely, I agree with that. And I think, again, that right now, as we speak, nobody has been able to say any of those two parties is responsible for the violence.
Oh, they've both accused and counter-accused.
So, which means both of them are responsible for the violence, from what you said.
Because there have been accusations.
Yeah, you just told me that, yes. And I like that. So let me take it from you now that both of them have been accusing themselves, so both of them are responsible.
We can assume that.
Yes.
Fine, beautiful. So it is now the responsibility of the parties involved, the PDP, to call Wike to order, while the APC calls Amechi to order.
Has that been done?
So, fine. Now, the military. The responsibility of the military is to maintain the peace. Whether APC or PDP, whichever party foments trouble, the military should quell the trouble. That's exactly what I think the military has been doing in Rivers State.
But how about quelling or curtailing it before the trouble even arises? Because by the time the military stepped into the fray, that created a whole other disaster. Lives have been lost.
How do you curtail election crisis before they arise?
At the party level.
Which is why we're asking.
That's what is
the responsibility?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
we have seen a volatile circumstance in Rivers. And we're saying, like you said, they both have been called to order.
Have they?
I'm asking if they have.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the party has been talking to Amechi. I have personally sent a message to Amechi to please take it easy. And I'm sure the party has been talking to Amechi to say, look, violence is not acceptable.
So what measures are being put in place? Because there's one thing from talking, and we can see that on both parties, it's not working. We're getting closer. So I think the question is,
and the party has done in the past suspended people that they believe have been doing
what actions are being taken?
No, is the situation in Rivers anti-party?
No, it's not anti-party.
Yes. Like I said, you see,
I'm just giving an example. I'm giving an example that they have suspended people that they have felt disciplinary action.
Let's be very honest with ourselves. Let's be very honest with ourselves. Rivers State, like I said, however we look at it, INEC cannot suspend elections for too long, forever. A governor must emerge. Election must hold.
Yes, what I want to know is that local bigwigs, local political chieftains, are they bigger than the party? I thought the party was supreme. Yeah, how is it that they cannot be controlled?
How? I'm not sure you are reading the situation in Rivers very well.
Please help us understand it.
Look, what has happened here is very simple. Are you saying that you have not observed a lot of violence in Rivers before this time?
Oh no, it's customary, rivers of blood.
So fine, and that is it's getting heightened now because there's election. You understand what I'm saying? Look, are you saying that even during the era of President Olusegun Obasanjo, you didn't know of the Niger Delta crisis, the violence, the heavy violence in Niger Delta, all of those things? In Rivers State, I understand a lot of arms and ammunition get into the public, get into the society.
Yes, but
so
the point
now, if you have that, if you have a society where arms and ammunition spread around, you are not too far from violence. At the flip of a finger, violence can erupt. Now you are now managing election, and that is why I think the government preempted the situation by sending a lot of military to the place to make sure that the violence is curtailed. Because what I'm simply saying to you is that Rivers State is extremely very volatile.
So you're saying it's beyond the party? The party can...
it's not about...
The party is helpless in the face of...
You're not listening to me. It's not about the party. Sir. What the party can do is to say, look, I mean, the party can only ride on what the government of the federation is doing, which the government has said, look, deploy a lot of military presence to Rivers State because we have a premonition that it's a violence-prone area. The government has done that. The party can only say, if you say Amechi is the cause of the crisis, the party has a responsibility to call Amechi to order. If you say Wike is the cause of the crisis, the party has a responsibility, the PDP has a responsibility to call Wike to order. And I really do not know if PDP had called Wike to order on this matter. But I do know that there are discussions within the APC to impress on Rotimi Amechi to ensure that violence gets minimal or violence does not even take place at all.
What about on the local level? You know, you said politics is local.
It's local.
What about on the local level? Like Tundu kind of indicated, where we're talking about the local government chairmans that are there. What is the party? Are there any measures that the party APC has taken to really spread that message of making sure that there's peace from their party in the local elections.
APC is not government in Rivers.
Yes.
It is PDP.
But it doesn't matter, but you still
No,
have
I'm coming.
Yes.
It is PDP.
Yes.
So if there is going to be any impression of government on the people from the state level, it has to be PDP. It has to be Wike. So how much Wike is doing to stem violence in Rivers is what is the issue we should be discussing.
So I have another question for you. One of the things you said earlier was that the president's body language is really anti-violent.
Oh, definitely. He said it, he pronounced it.
But that is not actually what happened in Rivers when he was in Rivers with Rotimi Amechi. Rotimi Amechi...
When the president was in Rivers with Rotimi Amechi, yes. There was violence?
No, there wasn't violence, but Rotimi Amechi's rhetoric was that did incite violence. And the president, when the president got up to speak, the president did not say, please ignore what my colleague has said. So when you say APC is telling Amechi to take it easy, we're not seeing that. That is not coming through publicly. In
a family, is it every word of caution you give, the father gives to the children that is made public? Of what benefit will it be after Rotimi Amechi had spoken presumably carelessly, and the president would now say, please ignore Rotimi, or what he has said is careless. That's not presidential.
The inciting of violence, if as you said earlier, all indications that the president is anti-violence.
It's not about indication, it's what you can feel. Can't you feel that the president doesn't like violence?
You said it.
No, I even said he spoke it. He pronounced it. That if
but
anybody
he did not pronounce it at that time.
It would have been unpresidential. Presidents don't run like that. Presidents don't speak like that. So if the president at that point had a reason to speak, to feel something against what Amechi had said, they will issue the proper message to Amechi that please don't say this again. It is not proper.
Was that done?
Well, I wouldn't know. I don't work in his cabinet. I manage his political platform, but not his cabinet.
Was it done on the political platform?
Oh, yes, we advise. We always, every month, we do a lot of political advice to the president. On a monthly basis, we do a report. We look at every society, we look at the public, we look at everything, and we advise accordingly. So I am sure, I can't remember this statement you are saying, but because, I know you don't say what you don't know. So therefore, I believe what you have said.
I recall it perfectly.
This was during the presidential.
No, yes, I'm actually several times, I'm sure, because the APC does not believe in a violent legacy. The president.
I'm glad you've said that.
The president does not believe in a violent-driven democracy.
He doesn't?
He doesn't. He said it many times, that by the time it's done, he wants to ensure that democracy is entrenched properly and everybody plays according to the rules. And that he has demonstrated in many ways. In many ways.
So let's now talk. You said that INEC, you're not going to discredit INEC with a lot of even the obvious failings because those are systemic failures.
If you say that there's any human society that is not prone to failure, then I would say INEC, I would discredit INEC.
Okay, so now let's move on to the military. What is your assessment of the role of the military, the role of the police, the general security situation of the elections?
My experience, because I was all over the place, actually. I was in Osun, I was in Kwara. My experience, and this issue of security and violence, they are compartmentalized. They are, according to, in Osun, the presidential election had no inkling, had no feeling of violence at all. There was no basis. In Kwara, well, you could see that because of the Sarakis factor, there was a bit of tension. The military had managed the situation very well. The military had played a very neutral role in ensuring that all they were interested in is to ensure that there was no violence. I think I can say that with every sense of responsibility.
So even though the police, even though INEC have criticized the military?
Well, you see, for me, in different places, there are different circumstances that play out for different reasons. Was the military supposed to work according to INEC's expectation? The brief of the military was to ensure that there was no violence. And they were not supposed to give reasons why they want to quell violence. Once there is violence, whatever reason is precipitating the violence is not important to the military. Make sure there's no violence.
But that's actually not the procedure. The military is not supposed to intervene at all unless called to help by the police.
No,
They're not supposed to just...
That's not correct. It's not correct because... No, it's not. It's not correct because the military, first of all, has a responsibility for total defense of our territorial integrity, internal and external.
No.
Yes.
The Constitution...
Internal and external.
The Constitution would state otherwise.
No.
Let us to assist where needed.
Are you saying that there should have been violence before you call the military? How smart would that have been?
That is not what we're saying. We're actually saying that this is actually the territory of the police, not the military. Basically, what you're saying today, and please, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is that you're saying that the military, there's no criticism against the military.
I didn't say
that. Okay, please.
There could be criticism against the military.
Actually, all observers, even INEC has said that this has been the most militarized election. And also, too, as a people and as someone who I believe, you believe in democracy because you are supporting a democratic process, we should be able to have a conversation about how our democracy is becoming more and more militarized. And if that's the democracy we want, and that is democracy history we want to live for our children, that is the conversation we want to have.
The military did not conduct election. Criticizing the military at the level that we want to take it may be a bit unfair.
Well, they would agree with you. Chief of Army Staff Borotai would agree with you.
Maybe a bit unfair, and I'll tell you why. Let's imagine that we are taking out the military completely. Like you said, the ideal thing was to invite them when there is violence. But I'm saying that that ideal situation would have made a mess of our circumstance in Nigeria. I won't even support that if I'm in a situation to prescribe. Now, imagine if there was no military presence and violence had broken out in about 12 states. Do you think we can manage? Do you think we could have been able to manage? I once lived in this country when Kaduna was boiling. It almost consumed everybody, around 1982. It almost consumed everybody. There were election violence in this country that spread from one state to another. I mean, the most recent was June 12. It was... So, what I'm simply saying is that the presence of the military makes violence sometimes impossible because people don't even want to try it once they see them. You can't imagine the kind of violence we might have experienced if they were not there.
So you would agree with Borotai, the Chief of Army Staff General Borotai, who says he seems to be bristling about the allegations that the military sort of overreached in many areas. You would agree with that? That they did not, that they acted really within the ambit that they ought to have?
Well, there's a difference between the reasonability of their action and the excessiveness of their activity. Why were they called out? Could be a very reasonable reason, a very reasonable purpose to call them out. How they eventually acted while they were on the field may be excessive.
Right.
We must be able to distinguish.
Right.
So them being present is part of the security plan of...
Say again, please.
The military being present is part of the plan. They're supposed to be in the outer perimeters of polling units.
No, it's part of... It has been like that, yes.
But I think what we're talking about is now their actions while they were on the ground.
They might have overreacted in a few places. There's no doubt about that.
So you can say
that. They might have overreacted in a few places. I'm not a military man. Yeah. I'm not the spokesman of the Nigerian army. You understand what I'm saying? I'm only speaking as a reasonable human being based on what I heard, based on what I see, and obviously I couldn't have heard everything, I couldn't have seen everything. But based on the little I've seen and heard, and the little you've shared with me, I tend to appreciate the fact that they might have excessively acted in a few places. It is human. But if they acted in a way seen to be excessively brutal and out of order, there are legal procedures for punishing, overzealous military personnel who acted outside prescription. I think so.
I want to talk to you a little bit now about your work as on the National Committee
Bwari Support Group.
Yeah. And of course, Buhari has now been given a second term and a mandate.
He won an election.
He has a new mandate. And I mean, we can talk about the mandate, how, what that mandate means. But I think one of the things going into this election, and one of the things that dominated this elections was obviously the economy, and also the sense that Buhari is not business friendly. And one of the examples that was given was the MTN sort of fines. And I know in the past you have supported that. I just wanted to get a sense from you, what can we expect from an economic perspective, an economic point going forward now that and we know Buhari knows, that people have felt that he's not friendly to business? What can the private sector expect? What can the business community expect?
To be very honest with you, I can't stand here and say that Buhari was perfect in his first term. He's a human being, his government, but I am sure.
Let's talk about, what do you think were the shortcomings of his first administration,
I think the appointments were a bit of issue.
Which ones?
The appointments. For instance, some of the ministers did not perform up to expectation of the people.
Give us a sense of who those are.
No, I won't. It would be wrong for me to sit here and start saying...
You're a Nigerian citizen.
No, I'm coming. Yes, but I must be reasonable. I can't sit here and say one minister did not do well, another minister did well. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that some of them did not do well, and that's a fact.
Why can't you tell us who they are? I don't understand.
Because I don't believe it is right for me to do. And I think I have a right to say what I feel is right. Right, what I'm saying. I don't feel it's right for me to say that X minister has done well, Y minister did not do well. But I'm saying to you that part of the things that I take that we feel could be done better by Mr. President is to ensure that his appointments are...
This time
around, yes.
Would you say when it comes to poverty alleviation, the ministers working on that area did not do a good job?
That is under the purview of the Vice President. All of those...
Actually, they're different. Most ministries
all of those engagements that have to do with poverty alleviation, trader money kind of thing, the Vice President's office managed it. And they've done very well with respect to that. They've done very well. As a matter of fact, well over 25 billion.
But they haven't done very well because Nigeria now has the highest number of poor people in the world.
You see, can we please appreciate the way these statistics are doled out? When you say Nigerians...
When we used to say India, people
when you say Nigerians have the indices show that Nigeria has the highest poverty level in the world. Take a look at this. In the last regime, how much of such outreach to the downtrodden of the society was done? In this regime, how much was done? I can tell you categorically, a lot more was done under this regime than the last regime.
Okay,
we remember Shopee. We remember Shopee, and we remember.
Soon you're not going to be able to refer to the last regime. The last regime will be your regime.
Yeah, it will be our regime. So that's exactly what I'm saying. That we started.
So we'll let you do this last time.
We started a concerted effort to reach out to the poor. The Vice President.
But you do not dispute that Nigeria has the highest number
it depends.
Of it depends.
Are
you disputing this? Because this is statistics that has been globally subscribed to.
No, it depends. I cannot dispute it.
Even the Vice President has said this. So
no, I can't dispute it if it is statistics.
Fine.
If it is statistics, if it is statistics, I won't dispute it. Okay. But I'm saying that you and I know that Nigeria didn't start 4 years ago. So if the APC government spent 25 billion on poor people in the last 4 years, and the government before us never spent a dime.
But it's getting threadbare.
I'm now saying that if we spend 25 billion, for instance, on poor people in our first year, we are willing to increase it to about 35 billion this second term. If the government that comes after increases to 50 billion, poverty eradication will be making more sense. Nigeria didn't start 4 years ago. Nigeria started about close to 60 years ago. So if successive governments have taken enough measures to reach out to the poor, the level of poverty would have reduced.
Yes, exactly. And we wouldn't be #1 on the list, like she just said. We would have, if we've spent 25 billion with this government in the last 4 years, as opposed to the last one,
do me a favor. First of all, do me a favor. Appreciate the APC government of the last 4 years for taking that measure.
That's actually not what the issue of appreciation is not here. One of the things that we both agreed, or you agreed, that there were some appointments that have not.
Yes, I'm hoping that the president will do better this time around, where everybody is all hands on deck to ensure that some of those appointments should be a lot, better this time around. If we get it right like that way, things will go a lot. I mean, some of those appointments are brilliant. For instance, look at Fowler, what Fowler has done in FIRS. 5.3 trillion put back in the coffers of government. It has never happened before. Some of those activities there were, in fact, this government recorded a lot of seriousness in the area of pursuing and executing policies.
And
look at what the
corruption was.
Look at what the customs have done too. The customs, when you do comparative analysis between what these people have done and what they have done in the past, you know that these are more serious people, pursuing business of governance.
So your candidate ran on an anti-corruption platform last time. How much progress do you believe has been made when it comes to actually trying corruption cases and actually getting?
There's never been a time in this country corruption has been tackled headlong this way. There's never been. It is not about whether I believe, except you are not in Nigeria.
Even though the criticism has been that there has been no indictment.
Criticisms, don't worry about that. PDP, they have an orchestrated mechanism to criticize. PDP can criticize flies flying on the street. See, this fly should have gone this direction.
But you would say that fly was you would say that fly came from the 4 years prior.
Don't worry about PDP. PDP will always criticize anything. They don't. These are people who squandered the patrimony of Nigerian people. If not because Nigeria is who we are, should PDP even be on the electoral ballot paper?
No, but as we round up, what did President Buhari mean when he said we're going to face tougher times?
He said we're going to face tougher times.
What did he mean by that?
Yeah, probably we're saying we're coming from a situation where the PDP was very reckless in the way they ran the government. $16 billion on power. Not 1 megawatt was seen anywhere.
But let's base it on his last 4 years.
I'm coming. And we're saying that between you and I, 4 years will not be enough to clear this mess that nobody had cared about 20 years past.
Okay.
So we've done the first 4 years. We've run, the relay is halfway done. The race is halfway done. Please brace up so that by the time we conclude with this economic measures, all of us will be happy for it.
So he's still in the process of building the foundation.
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly what he said. That look, Bwari is not here to inflict pains on the people, but he's only saying, please, I want to run a government based on truth. Please brace up. We still have a bit of this journey to go. But by the time we get to the end of this journey, all of us will smile across board. Today, 90% of the rice we consume are produced here. Bwari said when he came to power, a nation that cannot feed itself will have a problem. We must begin to feed ourselves. The smallest thing we can do for ourselves as a nation is to at least be able to feed ourselves. 4 years down the line, $21 billion yearly spent on importation of rice was saved.
What about the smuggling of imported rice?
You know, I mean, there's so many.
How much of those smuggling did you see in the last 4 years? It has reduced.
All right.
Okay, we won't even.
Otumba, it's always a pleasure to have you. I think
it's always a tough time to be here.
I think
it's always an honest time, and we appreciate you coming.
I think at the end of this, what you did say was that there have been some appointments that during Buhari's first term that you hope will be different this time.
Oh, definitely. His wife said so too, not only me.
I think that's one thing that we can all agree on, and we all hope that going forward we can see some real change in Nigeria. Thank you once again for being here.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you.
We look forward to having you back.
The APC will do better this time around, and you all be happy.
Hold you to it.
In fact, by the time I come here next, we'll be on 25-story building.
Oh. We'll hold you to that. It's time now for a short break. When we return, Pascal Egwin, good governance consultant, will be joining us from Arise Abuja studio to discuss Buhari's anti-corruption war. Stay with us.